What's up everyone? So today I'm going to be divulging my film camera collection to you guys. I have kind of a good variety of point and shoots and SLRs and other just more fun cameras to play around with. So yeah, I haven't done a video like this before, so I'm excited to kind of try my hand at it. Some might say that I have too many cameras, but personally I think it's kind of the perfect amount. Each kind of has their own purpose in my collection. So it just kind of depends on what I'm trying to shoot, what kind of look. So without further ado, let's start off with the SLRs. So this camera is my Minolta X570. It is kind of like your standard SLR. To be quite honest, I don't really know the exact difference, but this one is very much similar to the X700. So this camera actually has a pretty funny backstory. So I found this at a nearby thrift store. It's like 5 minutes away from me for about $8. So it came with the lens and everything, $8. So you really cannot beat that. Perfect condition. I've been using this one quite a bit, so probably my favorite SLR that I own. So Minolta X570. Great camera. My only other SLR is the famous Canon AE1. This is not the AE1 program. I did own a Canon AE1 program for a little while, but ended up selling it just because I liked this one so much. I didn't feel like I needed to have two. So this Canon AE1 is actually my most sentimental camera because it was the first camera I ever got, or film camera I should say. So it's definitely had its go around. Haven't used it in a bit actually, so it's kind of dusty. But I love this camera. It's definitely my most sentimental camera, so I will never sell this one. So next I'm going to move on to my point and shoot cameras. So I'm definitely a big point and shoot guy. I love my point and shoot cameras. There's truly nothing like just having a nice pocketable camera to bring around to school or to a party or just shooting your friends or something like that. So the first point and shoot that I'm going to show you guys is going to be the Olympus Stylus Epic, or otherwise known as the Olympus Mewtwo. This is a 35mm point and shoot camera. It's known for its really good lens. It's got a 35mm f2.8 lens, which is phenomenal for a little point and shoot like this. The images that I get out of this camera are honestly some of my favorite that I've taken, surprisingly. And yeah, it's weatherproof. It's got a few different features such as like the timer and the flash modes and stuff like that. It's definitely a workhorse of a camera, even though it's so small. I love just throwing this in my handbag or in my backpack and going to school or traveling with this camera. So yeah, I definitely think this is my best point and shoot that I have. So yes, I love that one. Probably my favorite camera that I own out of all of these would be the Olympus XA. I guess you could call it a point and shoot because it technically is, but it's also a rangefinder, so it's one of the only rangefinder point and shoots that I know of. I think there's the Contax T, which is very similar to this camera. But yeah, I definitely love this camera to pieces. It's one of my go-to shooters. It's been one of my go-to shooters for the past year and a half. This is actually the Olympus XA, not the XA1 or XA2, it's just the original. So that means it has the manual features on the side, so like the aperture, and you can set your focal distance and stuff like that. So it is a true rangefinder. But yeah, I love this camera so much. I'm never gonna sell this one. So next up on my list would be two of the lomography cameras that I own. I know some people aren't really a fan of lomography, but to me, I think it achieves a pretty cool look, and it depends on what you're going for, but a very experimental kind of retro looking photo that I do actually like the look of. So the first camera that I owned from lomography would be the Holga 120 GCFN. Yeah. This camera is really interesting. It's 120 millimeters, so it does take medium format film. It does take a battery too, because this one's the GCFN model, so if you did want to use the flash, you could do that, but I don't really use it. But yeah, it's a pretty simple camera, just all plastic body, no real insanely cool features, but I do like the images that this one produces. So I took this to a trip in Colorado a few years back, and I got some really cool looking images. I do like the kind of dreamy, hazy, sort of rounded edges quality to it. It looks quite vintage, and if that's your style of photo, I definitely would recommend picking up one of these Holga variations. There's definitely different models that you could get, but they do come pretty cheap. I think I got this one for like 35 bucks. So yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend getting one of these Holga cameras. They're definitely an interesting camera. So speaking of Holgas, my second kind of fun camera, if you will, would be the Holga 135. So this camera actually was discontinued. It's the 35mm version of the Holga 120. And the reason I picked this one up was because I didn't like only getting 16 shots out of the Holga 120, even though that is kind of a good amount for a 120mm camera. I just kind of wanted the same aesthetic style of a photo, only with more images. So yeah, like I said, this Holga 135 is very similar to the 120, except this one is 35mm, so it does take 36 images depending on what film you shoot. I would say the main difference between the 135 and the 120, obviously, apart from the film format size, would be with the 135 you get more vignetting on the sides of the photo, and you're also getting smaller negatives, so the image is more grainy. It's not as good of quality, I guess. Even though Holgas aren't really known for quality, you are getting less quality. Camera to show you guys would be the Canon 514 XL. I got a really good deal on this one at my local film camera store. It's a Super 8 film camera, so it takes 8mm, and it definitely is one of my favorite cameras that I own. I've only shot one short film on this, just one cartridge. I can link that in the description if you guys do want to see it. I'm very proud with how it came out. I did work pretty hard on it. I filmed it over the length of summer 2020, so last summer. The Canon 514 or Canon 310 XL are both really good models if you're looking for a Super 8mm camera. Of course, there's a bunch of different varieties of Super 8 cameras, so it doesn't really matter which one you get, but I knew this one was a reliable choice, so I did go with this one. It's definitely a really good camera to own if you're looking to shoot a Super 8 video. I think the rap that Super 8 film gets is kind of like, it's super impossible, it's super expensive, it's just very not feasible, it takes forever to develop and shoot and stuff. And while some of those things may be true somewhat, for me it was really easy. Like, I just kind of saved up some money, bought the film for like $35 online from Cohen, shot it over the length of a few months, and then sent it off for development and scanning for like a total of $80. So it definitely was pretty expensive, but it's worth it in my opinion to get that cool, really sweet looking vintage aesthetic video. So you really can't replicate the look of Super 8 film. There's actually one more camera that I didn't show you guys, so let me show you that real quick. So yeah, this is my Polaroid 600 one-step film camera. Pretty cool looking face to the camera. Pretty simple features, just like the focus distance here. If you guys can see, there's just like a little setting when it comes to focus distance, kind of similar to the Holga's. It's got a little setting here for light and dark, so depending on which settings you're in. But yeah, it's got built-in flash, as you can see. Pretty standard when it comes to Polaroid cameras, but I definitely like shooting Polaroids whenever I can. It's definitely very expensive, but again, these things are always scaring me because when you bending the front down, it feels like you're breaking the camera, but you're not. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.